Waiver wire winners for fantasy football to consider picking up based off of who's available and what you need heading into Week 13. Pat Freiermuth should have never been on waiver wires. He should have been stashed on IRs. He returned in Week 11 from injury. Prior to Week 12, the offensive coordinator was fired, and he had a massive Week 12 performance, catching 9 of 11 targets for 120 receiving yards and 21 fantasy points. Pat opened up the season scoring 2 touchdowns across the first 3 weeks, which matched his last year touchdown total. 98 targets, 732 receiving yards last season. He's going to be a big piece of the Steelers offense rest of season. 19.4, 19.2, and 15 fantasy points across the last 3 weeks for rookie Jaden Reed. 84 receiving yards and a touchdown in Week 10. 46 receiving and 46 rushing yards with a rushing touchdown in Week 11. Then another touchdown in Week 12. He earned 8 targets and played 73% of the snaps. Reed is carving out a very well-deserved role in this Green Bay offense. Third-round rookie Jalen Hyatt had his breakout game in Week 12. 5 catches on 6 targets for 109 receiving yards and 15.9 fantasy points for Hyatt. The Giants do have a bye in Week 13, but I think he's worth picking up, seeing that big performance and knowing that he may be carving out a significant role rest of season. Let's go back to Green Bay and talk Jordan Love. Back-to-back top 10 fantasy weeks, 7 top 12 weeks on the season. Season high 322 passing yards in Week 11. He threw 3 touchdowns in Week 12, which was the 3rd time he's done that this season. Rookie Roschon Johnson carried the ball 10 times for 35 yards, and he caught 5 passes for 40 receiving yards. 15 touches to Khalil Herbert's 8 in Week 12. The Bears get a bye in Week 13. Maybe Deonta Foreman's back. Maybe Khalil Herbert gets healthy. But I think there's a strong chance that Roschon Johnson is the running back 1 in the Bears' backfield rest of season. Demario Douglas, the 6th-round rookie, has earned 6, 7, 7, 9, and 9 targets across the last 4 games played. In 4 out of 5 of these games, he has finished with double-digit fantasy points. I think there's a chance that he might miss Week 13, but I think he's a good stash just because he's been operating as the New England wide receiver 1. Little bit of risk here with Jameson Williams, but 2 receptions for 44 yards and a touchdown in Week 11, 2 receptions for 51 yards in Week 12. That's 22 and 25.5 yards per reception, which shows the big play upside tied to his first-round draft profile as a prospect. So if the big play guy can start earning more targets, he can be flex-worthy. Pay attention to the timeline news on the return of Joshua Palmer. I think the Chargers are desperate for someone else to step up beyond Keenan Allen. And Palmer's had games of 77 and 133 receiving yards this season, 4 games of 7+ targets. But if Palmer continues to miss time, take a look at Gerald Everett for the tight end position. Everett caught all 4 of his targets for 43 yards and a touchdown, 14.3 fantasy points in Week 12, which was his 3rd top 10 fantasy week of the season. We are getting towards the point of looking for running backs that are just touching the ball. We know that the position can get thin, so I have 2 guys to take a look at. One is Samaje Perine, who scored 13.7 and 13.6 fantasy points the last 2 weeks, flashing through the air and on the ground. 7 receptions for 60 yards in Week 11, 55 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown in Week 12. And then Antonio Gibson, who's caught 5, 5, 6, and 4 receptions across the last 4 weeks, with 2 games of 42 receiving yards in there. And as just stated, the running back position can get very thin in its cuffing season. So consider picking up one of these handcuffs to stash for the fantasy playoffs. These are pretty much in order of how I would prioritize handcuffs. I did miss Ty Chandler, who would be towards the upper portion of this list. Again, if you have open roster spots, handcuffing a running back on your bench could be a good thing heading into the playoffs. Knock on wood in case someone gets hurt, right? Follow us at Fantrax for tons more content coming out this week.